Hello, I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking for FinextraTV here at NextGen Nordics 2025 in Stockholm, and I'm talking to Christina Fransson of FIS Global. And we're talking about payment hubs and ISO 20022. Christina, a big welcome.
Thank you very much, Debbie.
Payment hubs, very interesting conversation.
Indeed, it is an interesting conversation.
And really, I want to ask you, how have they evolved from the days of your centralized payment factories?
Yes, so around 10-15 years ago, the term central payment factories became very fashionable. And the idea and the promise was that centralizing all payment types on one single payment hub was going to lead to economies of scale. Of course, now with the hindsight, we realize that these payment hubs were still going to be centralized on one single payment hub, but it was several different technologies, different formats, and different standards. So you still needed a lot of people, and you still needed quite a lot of separation between the actual payment types, because the payment schemes were very different. So the economies of scale never really materialized. Whereas today, thanks a lot to the regulators, we have the wonderful ISO 20022 format, which actually means that several different payment types, be that domestic or cross-border payment types, and the trend is global, it's not only in Scandinavia or in Europe, you can run several different payment types or one single payment hub with one single technology, one architecture on the same standard and the same format. And there you have the possibility to actually materialize the famous economies of scales. Your total cost of ownership goes down. You become much more innovative as a bank because your time to market is significantly reduced. Then, of course, yes, you have the global context with the public clouds that allows elasticity, etc. But also around modern payment hubs, consolidated payment hubs today, you will see that you have APIs and microservices and open banking, open finance that facilitates in a significant way the implementation projects of the payment hub into the rest of the landscape of the bank. And then also I would like to underline that these centralized payment factories, they were actually built on systems that were a little bit more like a big black box, where you couldn't really see any separation between the different layer of the order management and the execution layer. But what is very important for these centralized payment hubs to actually function is that you have a separation in terms of the instances for the instant payment and batch payments, especially because, as you can imagine, when you have this significant time pressure of 10 seconds for the SEPA instant payments, for example. And if you have a corporate who's suddenly sending in a batch payment of millions of payments, and there's no separation between instant and batch, the number of batch payments that suddenly arrives will slow down the processing of the instant payments. So it's important that today it's much more modular as well.
Wow, that's so interesting. That description you give of the modular and the example is really interesting. And earlier you mentioned regulation, ISO 20022, but in terms of regulation as a whole, do you think because of the increased focus on regulation that you're seeing a heightened level of investment in payment hubs?
We have definitely seen it's clear that the regulations have pushed banks to do investments that they would not have done otherwise. Because, let's face it, a payment hub, it's the back office piece. It's not visible for the end customers. And it's like ripping out a little bit the heart of the bank. So it's not the type of things that banks want to start that kind of projects. But however, now, today, we're really at a crossroads because we have the SEPA instant regulation that is it's being finalized toward the end of the year, also with the outgoing payments. And then you have the SWIFT ISO migration at the same time. All of this happening on an ISO 20 or 22 format. And of course, yes, it has pushed banks to make significant investments in order to be able to do instant payments within 10 seconds, and also to be able to handle the ISO format for SWIFT. But I'm also convinced that the payments around instant payments, SEPA instant payments, and around the SWIFT ISO migration, the investments within the banks are not yet over, because several banks, they have put in solutions that can handle a certain number of transactions per second, but they remain within the hundreds. But with the SEPA instant regulation, soon we're going to need to be able to banks will need solutions that can tackle thousands of transactions per second. And I'm not sure that their legacy solutions can handle that. And then you also have banks who have put in place translators in order to comply to the SWIFT ISO migration. But a translator means that you're losing a significant amount of data. And I think that slowly but surely, especially for corporate banks, they're going to need to have a solution that is ISO 20 or 22 at its core.
And back on that subject of investment, why do you think organizations took a while to invest? Do you think they needed that push of increased focus on regulation?
Exactly. As I said in the beginning, it's not something that is customer facing, it's risky, it can be costly. It's really thanks to the regulators that we have this conformity of the payment formats and the payment standards that I don't think it would have happened otherwise.
So Christina, ISO 20022.
Yes.
Large part of our conversation, a large part of the conversation here at NextGen Nordics as well.
Yes.
Would you say that the ISO 20022 standard is what's pushing this interest in payment hubs?
Yes, it is, because even the SEPA regulation and the SEPA instant regulation is on the base of ISO 20 or 22. So it all kind of comes back to that. So of course that is what has been pushing banks to make investments. Then also what I would like to say that is it's very important when you're choosing a payment hub, a centralized payment hub, that it's actually ISO 22 in its core. Because if you're using translators around it, you will inevitably, in the end, be losing in terms of the richness of the data. That is the beauty of ISO 20022.
Christina, thank you so much. You've really brought so much to this conversation, and no doubt you'll be talking more around the event about the same topics, and we've warmed you up.
We will.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Debbie.